are like, yeah, I'm creative, but that doesn't necessarily just mean one thing, or I'm going to do one thing for the rest of my life.
Exactly. And I think that's kind of been the lesson that I've learned over all of this.
Alrighty. So welcome back to Creative Living with Leash. I'm your host and guide to a life less ordinary. And today I'm chatting with the extraordinary Alexa from Telling Our Tales. She's a dog mom in Brooklyn who's created a 50,000 plus person community around loving yourself as much as you love your pets, which is so freaking important because I've literally I had the thought the other day of how many times a day I say I love you to Tucker. And I'm like, I need to make sure that I'm saying that to myself. And I just think you really do an amazing job of blending, that sort of self-love element with advocacy and vulnerability, your personal as well as your professional sort of happenings and things like that. And it's a really warm yet real vibe online. So I was really excited and I thought of you immediately when I wanted to chat about the topic of, being multi-passionate, juggling all the things, and how that can sort of fuel or in a way help you grow online or just live your mission in general. And
Yeah.
so I really appreciate this chat. And I mean, obviously we've been following each other for a little bit now. We met in a cyclical women's business collective, and yeah, it's just amazing what the internet can do in terms of bringing such aligned souls together and just creating amazing things. And I feel, because I'm the community that I feel like I'm creating online is really about living anything but ordinary, ripping up the script, breaking out of the box, develop your courage, chase your dreams, all the things. And so I wanted to know, sort of to jump into it, what do you feel is the most extraordinary thing that you've either experienced or achieved in your life so far?
Oh my goodness, that is a big question. I think I think it is Joni, my dog. I think so when we first adopted her in 2021, my fiance now, boyfriend at the time, we were just like, we want a dog. We grew up with dogs. We were just like, let's get a dog. We didn't do the proper research about breeds or anything. We just were like, she's cute, let's adopt her. And she is really cute, but she was 5 months old when we got her. She had tons of puppy stuff, of course. So we were like, oh my God, this is a lot. This is, having a dog is a lot. And then she was bit by another dog when she was about 7 months old. And that kind of started her journey of reactivity and aggression. And we basically couldn't leave the house without her freaking out. I mean, we live in Brooklyn. So, we leave the house and you see 10 other dogs, 20 people, trash cans, garbage, cats,
Yeah.
rats, you can't things. And so I think the journey of guiding her through that and, investing time and energy and money ultimately to get her to a place that she felt comfortable in her world, looking back at where we were in, say, late 21, early 22, and doing the things that we do now, could have never imagined it. And so I think it really showed me that you can never say never. And I feel like I've transferred a lot of that information, and the fact that I was able to commit to this change for her really just kind of guided me to be like, I can do that for myself too. I have the ability to invest this energy and time into something that I love so much, who clearly is not feeling comfortable in her world and living, a sheltered life because she was just that, we had to be that careful about what we did with her. It was just oh, okay, well, if I'm also not feeling my best, what can I do to help myself? So I think that's kind of the thing. And it also changed my relationship with my partner so much too, because it was the thing that we both were so changed by, because she was like our little girl. You know, we have a cat and we love Sid. He's amazing, but he's a cat. He stays at home. Like the issues are not the same when you're in the city with the dog. So it was just kind of like a huge eye-opening experience of like learning to communicate better and, you know, being on the same page about the choices we made for her. So I think that to me is extraordinary and has led and opened the door to me doing more things now, but also realizing some things about like how I managed to change things in the past too. It just like really kind of changed my outlook of life generally, and not just like dog ownership, which obviously it did, but I think it really just, you know, opened my eyes to so much.
Yeah, and it's interesting too with, you know, you mentioned the points of not feeling safe like in her world and living a very sheltered life. Like I feel like sometimes we kind of get caught up in that as well, right? Like just as humans, and that caretaker role really shows how well we have to take care of ourselves as well. So I want to know a little bit more about that, like in terms of, you know, treat yourself as well as great as you treat your pets. Like where did that come from? Like in the sense that, like, where were you either personally or maybe in your relationship like 3 to 5 years ago, and like how have you evolved and healed to where you are today, and you're like really expressing and, you know, living that purpose online and in life?
Yeah, I think a lot of it was just as I started to like be an adult and like be an adult who is in a relationship and lives with the person that, you know, they're in the relationship with, and kind of seeing yourself through that kind of like second lens of like, I just realized that there was some like stuff going on within me that I was like, this stuff isn't like, I shouldn't have to deal with this all the time. So I eventually was diagnosed with PMDD and later was diagnosed with ADHD. And I think I wouldn't have even been able to kind of recognize that things were, you know, off without kind of being like, I don't feel comfortable in myself. Like what is happening here? And so I think it kind of just led me to be like, okay, Joni's at a really good spot in her training. We don't have to actively like do all this stuff anymore. Like what's going on with me, and how can I like put some time and energy into me? And I think the timing of it all really was aligned with, you know, who I started following on the internet and started learning about these things, and the way, you know, so I started her Instagram page, used to be called just Sid and Joni, and it was just like cute picture of them. But slowly like a community started building and people started sharing things that were not just about their pets, and I started learning things about PMDD, about ADHD, and was like, that really resonates. And seeking help in the form of therapists and psychiatrists and being able to get those diagnoses and just, you know, kind of taking this thing that was just like about dogs and being like kind of turning it on to myself, and being like, how can I help myself feel comfortable in my world? And so I think it all kind of came together through that. And just, you know, I started to realize like in the moments that Joni was maybe at her worst were some of the moments that I was also at my worst. And just like so stressed all the time. Just, you know, this was 2021, so like COVID was still not that it's not a thing, but it was more of a thing. And, you know, we were home all the time, and there were things I just like wasn't taking care of my body, and I wasn't, you know, taking care of my mind. I wasn't doing things that like really brought me joy. I wasn't taking time to figure out what brought me joy. My whole life was kind of centered around Joni, which it did need to be at the time. But also I think now that I am in a place that I like feel pretty good, I notice that our relationship is stronger because I'm able to just kind of like not have my whole worth be based on her, you know? So like being able to kind of like, yes, I'm a dog mom, but I'm also, you know, so many other things. And I think starting to like when I changed my Instagram account name from Sid and Joni to Telling Our Tales was kind of like, I want to start talking about me, like, because I'm here, I'm making these posts, like, how can I bring myself into this content? Because it just didn't feel authentic anymore to just be sharing about Joni and her training, because at that point, like I said, we reached a really good point, and I was like, okay, so how can this kind of shift? So I think all of that together kind of, it's so interesting to think about, because it really was like, because I started an account to show like cute pictures of my dog and cat and met so many different people and was like, oh, I actually like am dealing with things that not everyone deals with.
Yeah. And I think that's so interesting too, because, you know, I guess you've heard before, like, document, don't create sort of thing. And like the whole idea of like a niche being irrelevant anymore. It's really just like, okay, like I'm the one out here living, learning. I love my dog so much, but yeah, it's a really interesting evolution. And do you feel like you couldn't have had the foresight that you were going to create all of this? Like, it wasn't a plan, right? It was just like a heart-led, intuitive type of thing. It seems.
Completely. Yeah, this was not like, if you would have asked me even like 2-3 years ago, like what I would be like, even while we had Joni, like if this is what life would look like, I'd be like, that's insane. Like, that's crazy. That's not what I'm gonna be doing. And so it's really, yeah, it's been such like a unexpected kind of journey, but it's brought so many amazing people and opportunities and like such an amazing community into my life that truly has helped shape me to who I am at this moment. And it's just been really, really cool to kind of be like, this completely unexpected thing has been the thing that like has brought me so much joy.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you seem like a very creative person, just in general, like in the way you like to share different things, literally, and like just in terms of how you're really honest about how this has changed your life versus it being like strategic of like, I'm going to grow a brand, like, you know, I'm going to have all these brand deals, but it's like, you do talk about receiving, like attracting those things into your life and how it is just like this really abundant mentality and sort of just a byproduct of, I know authenticity is sort of like a buzzword, but living that like really authentic expression of yourself. And did you like grow up like being encouraged to be very creative, or did you always kind of know that you wanted to do something that was inherently creative and then community building?
Yeah, so I was a dancer my entire life. I actually went to school for dance. I ended up not graduating with a dance degree, but that is what I thought I wanted to do for my entire life, was dance. You know,
what kind of dance?
So I did modern and ballet. I went to Fordham University and was in the Alvin Ailey School. So it was a lot, you know, I was doing the thing, you know, I like was in one of the best schools in the country for dance, and I just kind of like fell out of love with dance, but not like art generally. But it's interesting because I did take like a break of like creating anything. I've never been the kind of person who is like creative in like drawing or painting. Like I've never been like that kind of creative, but there's always been like stuff trickling in my brain of things that I wanted to do. And so this has been a creative outlet that like is so unexpected and has been so much fun, and never something that I've been like, that makes like it makes sense looking at it now, but never something that I would have like sought out, because I didn't really. Again, I just like literally wanted to share cute pics of my pets. Like it wasn't like, I'm gonna make this account and make all these videos and like get all this money. It's like, that's just not where my head was at all. But it has turned into this creative outlet because I fell out of love with dance, but I also was injured, and I still deal with the same injury today. Like it just would not have been the thing that would have been able to sustain me. And when I made the decision to switch majors and kind of stop dancing, I actually never looked back, which tells me that it was the right decision. But I missed that like creative outlet so much, and I didn't even realize it at the time. It was kind of like, once I got it back, I was like, wow, I really missed this. And so, yeah, I always have been kind of like in that zone of creativity, and it's shifted and changed a lot, but it all kind of like comes back to the fact that it's just been such like a part of me forever. And it just because it looks different than how it used to doesn't mean that it's like it's still coming from the same place, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and I find it interesting because a quote that I really resonate with and live by is that creativity is not only your greatest tool for connecting with others, but your greatest resource in connecting with yourself. And I find that, you know, in this kind of era, it's like creativity is like this monetization type of thing, or like this external thing, but it really is like when you're able to come back to like, okay, how do I actually, like, I just love to express myself. I feel like that's like the essence of creativity. It feels so homey, it feels so grounding, and from that place, like, we're really able to create some cool things, and it leads us into some really interesting directions. I have, I guess, sort of similar type of experience where I didn't necessarily like set out from university to be like, okay, I'm going to create a media brand, and then I'm going to make a pet sit. Like, it just all kind of was like, okay, what do I really feel like called to do right now? How do I want to express myself right now? And I feel like I continue to listen to that and continue to follow that, and it leads to so many different forms of creativity and just like self-expression, and therefore like community building. So I think it's really inspiring when we just kind of are like, yeah, I'm creative, but that doesn't necessarily just mean one thing, or I'm going to do one thing for the rest of my life.
Exactly. And I think that's kind of been the lesson that I've learned over all of this, is just like, just see what happens. Like, just say yes to these opportunities, see what happens. Like, you never know, you know, a year from now could look completely different, and I'm a firm believer that everything happens for a reason. So it just all feels like it's very like interconnected, and, you know, one thing has led me to the other, and things I would never have anticipated doing are the things that I love the most. So it's really cool.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, I think, you know, not only in being able to get to a place where you're expressing yourself online, like in a way that feels really good, but now you're attracting so much in terms of, you know, some brand partnerships and stuff like that. So I'm just curious about what your, I guess, mentality is or approach is to producing, you know, that sort of high quality as well as consistent content, but like also taking care of, like you mentioned, some of your health things. You're planning a wedding, you're working, like what does it look like for you?
That's a very interesting question, because I'm still kind of trying to figure that all out. And I think something that, so I was diagnosed with ADHD in October. So it's been a very new kind of like experience of shifting my workflow to kind of accommodate that. I've also started medication, which has been truly life-changing. And I'm in the early kind of stages of being like, okay, this is the medication that I need to be on, and am able to like do all of these things and not feel like I'm gonna like freak out or that I'm like sinking. And so, but the thing I'm most proud of is that I never gave up, even when I was feeling that way. Sometimes I was like, I'll figure this out. Like, I know that this is all I want to be doing, all of these things. Like, how can I fit it all in and make it feel good and still like have the stability of a full-time job and do everything I want to do and also feel really good. And so that's kind of the thing that like has led me the past couple of months, especially, of being like, how can I split my day, of being like, okay, at this time I'm going to work on this thing, at this time I'm going to work on this thing, planning things out in advance, but also kind of just like flying by the seat of my pants. Like, I'm very like, I'm type A, but I'm also like not so type A in some things. I'm learning a lot about myself since having been diagnosed with ADHD, because it really like kind of opened, you know, a door to me being like, oh, that's why some of these things were the way that they were. That's why I felt this way about this certain thing, or that's why I, you know, handled the situation the way I did. So it's been very like, I mean, yeah, it's been life-changing to get that diagnosis and to kind of work through that. So I, for the first time, like in my life, am busier than I ever have been, but I am also like the happiest I ever have been because I just am like doing things that genuinely like bring me joy. And I think that's what I've learned overall is like, if something is going to cause me more stress and, you know, angst than it's worth, then I can say no. And that's okay. But if it's something that I really want to be doing and the passion that I have, like, I will figure it out. And so, you know, when we first met, I had just launched my virtual assistant business. I had been laid off and was like, you know what, let me just try to work for myself. Let me do this. And I hated it. I really was not happy. I was working really, really hard. I was not making a lot of money. I felt like I was all over the place. I just was not in the lane that I wanted to be in. Like, I thought that would kind of allow me to like be more creative and work with other entrepreneurs in the spaces that I was passionate about. But I was like, this is not what I want to do. So realizing that kind of pushed me to be like, okay, well, what is it that I want to do? You know, I got a full-time job, but the job I landed was exactly what I wanted in the way that was like, I still have time to like figure out what brings me joy. And so that's when I feel like I really started to like, my content started to pick up. I felt more comfortable. My community got stronger because I was finally like really testing the waters of like what makes me happy versus what I think I should be doing, or, you know, what I thought would make me like accepting the fact that what I thought would make me happy didn't, you know. And recognizing that not as a failure but as a lesson learned, and because it didn't fail, I made the choice to be like, I don't want to do this, which in the past I probably would not have done that as easily. I think I would have waited until I like started to crash and burn, which is kind of what happened when I stopped dancing. Like, it took someone else, my mom, to be like, do you not want to do this anymore? And I would just like lost it. Like, the floodgates open and I was like, no, I don't want to do this anymore. And I was able to kind of like start making those decisions with my business like before and just be like, this isn't what I want to do. Like, I don't want to be an entrepreneur like this. And I think in this society that we live in right now, I think that is like a hot topic of doing that. And I think it does work for some people, 100%, but it also just doesn't work for some people. And like, that's fine. And so I think it just has been like a huge learning experience of kind of like, what makes me happy? If it doesn't make me happy, like, take it off my plate, because my plate's very full. But all of the things that I'm doing, my full-time job, my part-time job, my content creation, my wedding planning, all that stuff is stuff that I'm like really excited about. And, you know, for different reasons for all of those different things, but everything kind of comes together and is like, I don't feel overwhelmed, and I feel I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing for like the first time in my life, which is a crazy feeling and like an indescribable feeling, because I thought I knew before, and now that I'm like living in it, I'm like, that was not it, you know?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's, I really resonate with what you're mentioning in terms of, you know, as artists and creatives, obviously there is a huge goal to be able to live that and be able to thrive off of that. And entrepreneurship is very much sexy and glamorized and things like that. And Brene Brown has a quote actually where it's like, sometimes you just have to get a job to fund your ART. And I'm like, that really is it, because if you're sort of putting all of the pressure on your art, whether it's, I think just like a creative business or any business in general, I feel is like a creative sort of endeavor, because the marketing aspect is like so huge in any sort of success. But when there's so much pressure on it, it sucks all the life out of it. It doesn't necessarily leave a lot of fun to be had, like in expressing yourself that way. And so, yeah, no, I definitely, there's the time I'm contracting right now, like, so that I can fund all of my creative endeavors. And I don't think there's anything wrong, right, with doing it this way, because that sense of safety, that sense of security is so important in being able to express yourself and connect with other people and just bring the good vibes in your life and externally.
100%. And I think I realized that very quickly. I kind of like, when I started doing it, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to like this, but I want to try it. And I'm so glad that I did. And who knows what the future holds, but what I know for sure is that the kind of business that I was running, virtual assistant, is not what I want to be doing. You know, I need more stability than that. Which kind of took me a second to be like, does this mean that, you know, I should stop doing all of my part-time stuff because I want to focus on stability? And should I stop doing telling our tales? Should I stop, you know, kind of seeking out these other opportunities? And I was like, no, I can do it all. I just need that like security of health insurance and a paycheck to be able to be fulfilled completely. And I know that isn't the case for everyone. And I commend people who figure it out and grind for it. And, you know, not that I'm not grinding, but I think for me, it's just been, you know, I have these opportunities to kind of do it all. And I'm not ready to give any one of those up.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And yeah, like we said, it's just so important. Oh, I just got a notice. Yeah, and I just think too, like, sometimes you have to get exactly what you think you wanted just to realize you don't actually want it. And that's okay, right? And like you said so far, right? Like you thought it was dance and then now it's something different. And you thought it was this and then now it's something different. And I feel like that's just life, right? Like we're always like beginner mentality. And yeah, that feeling of the safety, security is so important in us being able to dance with our artistry and to be able to, be really authentic, as well as, like I said, like connected with other people. And so I think that's really great. And so I'm on the topic of safety. I'd love to know a little bit more about Brad, because a long-term partnership like hasn't really been a part of my experience yet, but I really want to be able to find one day. And so I'm just really curious, because I feel like when you're really sort of like expressed, you have a sense of like safety and support in your life, right? Whether it's from a partner or from friend group. I definitely wasn't as expressed online or otherwise before I had my really good, safe people. So I'm just really curious, like, where do you think you had to maybe heal to attract someone like Brad? Or like, what are some of the qualities that you've experienced in your relationship that allow you to like express yourself fully and go after all the things that you want to do?
Yeah, I mean, I think I really had to get to a point that I was just like comfortable with something that, you know, was new. I had just gone out of a relationship and I was like, I'm gonna start dating again. But I was like, just like casually, like, you know, whatever. It was like a 2-year relationship, but it was like, had its quirks. And I matched with Brad on Hinge, and this was 2019. And I was able to suss him out with a friend. I realized we had a mutual friend, and she was like, he's great. Like, great. Okay, so I'm not gonna die on this date. Like, okay, good. Because as women, we have to check that out. And so I went on this date, and it just like immediately felt safe. And it just felt like someone who I could just like talk to, and I didn't have to like try to impress ever. And I could tell he felt comfortable too. And it just really was like that instant, like, not even like, this is my soulmate, but just like, this is someone who like I feel very comfortable around. So like, let's see kind of what happens here. It wasn't like love at first sight. Like, it wasn't any of that. It was just an immediate like sense of comfort. And it just kind of like grew from there. And I think COVID like pushed us together because we started dating in July of 2019. COVID happened March 2020. We spent truly every waking second together. We didn't live together at the time, but we lived close enough together that we could like pod with our roommates. And we just like had so much fun. Like, we have really similar interests, but also different interests in a lot of ways. Like, we like some of the same music, but also really different music. We like some of the same books, but also really different books. Like, there's something that ties us together in everything that we like. But within those things, we also like very different things. And I think that's what the healthiest thing has been in our relationship, is that we do a lot of things together, but we do a lot of things apart. And we allow each other to kind of like express ourselves in any way that we want to. He's in a couple of bands, they're punk bands. I don't like punk music, but I love him. And so I go and support him, and he has his outlets to do that. And, you know, we both work from home, so we spend our days together. But like, yeah, some nights we'll sit on the couch or we'll go to dinner, but some nights I'm out with my friends and he's out with his friends. And yeah, our friends are the same, but we've always been able to just like integrate our lives together, but also just like kind of like do our own thing, and always at the end of the day come back to each other. And he's been such an amazing support as I've like explored all of these different facets of my life. When I first met him, I was still working at a talent agency that I thought I wanted to like be a talent agent. So I've like had many different things going on, and he saw me and how miserable I was at that. He's been through a lot of iterations of my life in our, 5 years together. And, same me for him. And I think he also can see now that I'm just like so much more comfortable. And I think that just like he is happy because I am happy. And it's just been always kind of like consistent support and comfort, and just like allowing, not even allowing, I don't like that word. Like I can do whatever I want, but like respecting that we are two different people who love each other so much and want to spend we are going to be spending the rest of our lives together. We're getting married in 9 months, and it's like, but we're not each other's everything. Does that make sense? I think it's just so important to like, yeah, he's my best friend. He's the first person I want to call about things, but I also have my girlfriends. I have my family. I have, it's not just Brad, because if it were just Brad, like I think, and it's not just me for him. And so I think it just is like the healthiest relationship that I have ever been in, and one of the healthier relationships that I have seen too. And I think I feel so like all my friends are obsessed with Brad. I've never met one person who doesn't like him. Like, everyone feels that kind of immediate comfort with him. Like, that is like, something I love about him, is that he can tend to be shy. Once you kind of like get him talking, it's like, oh, this is like a person who like really is comfortable in himself and makes other people feel the same way. So he's just been like really amazing in supporting me throughout all these things that I've tried. Like, I would not have been able to do the virtual assistant business without him. Like, he supported me mentally, financially a little bit when I needed it. He was, and I think he even kind of knew before I did it that I probably wasn't going to be the thing. He knew before I did that it wasn't going to be the thing that I love, but he was like, no, you have to try it. Like, you have to try it. Now is the time to do it. Like, we are young. We were not yet engaged. We, don't have kids. Like, if you're going to try something different, like, now's the time to do it. And so he was always just been extremely supportive. He's my Instagram husband. He takes all my content. Like, he didn't know he was signing up to like take videos of me and my dog, but he does it. Sometimes it's begrudgingly, but he does it. And it's been a learning experience for both of us, like, and the opportunities that we've gotten, like, I've been able to include him on a lot of those too, like trips and whatever. And so it's just been, yeah, I think, like I said, he is amazing, but we are not each other's everything because we are two separate people who have interests and loves and creativity that kind of can sometimes grow together, but sometimes apart and back together and interweave and kind of all that stuff. And I think that is what it has gotten me through the last 5 years, is being with him, being with someone who kind of is just like growing with me, but also allowing me to grow by myself.
There's a quote that goes, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I feel like that's just amazing in terms of not only building a really, supportive, safe relationship as you have, which is so cute and amazing to hear. Like, oh, that's just so fun. And just like a community, right? And a support system in general. And I love that, like, having that sense of comfort, or prioritizing that feeling of comfort, as well as being, like a cheerleader, but then also having them cheer for you is just so important. Like, yeah. And so I think Zoom is going to cut us off soon, but thank you for chatting with me.
Oh, this was awesome. It was very cathartic to kind of talk about it. Thank you so much for inviting me and for being so thoughtful in your invitation. And I felt very seen when you asked me to do this. So thank you.